Welcome to the first module of Humanities 9. In this unit, we are going to be talking about the core question of what it means to be human. What were we created for? How should we spend our lives? What does it mean to live a life that is worth living? These are the questions that we're going to be concerned with over the duration of the course, but we're especially concerned with in this unit as we look at the origins of what it means to be a human. In order to address this question, we're going all the way back to the beginning. In the ancient Near East, there were three main cultures that we're going to read creation stories from to try to get a sense of how they defined a human being and what they believed human beings should live their life in pursuit of. We're going to be looking at three main cultures: the culture of ancient Israel, who wrote the Bible; ancient Mesopotamia, on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in the city of Babylon specifically; and ancient Greece, where we will read the story of Hesiod's Theogony. Now, these three civilizations came up with very divergent answers of what it means to be human, and of course what it means to live a life that is worth living. So we're going to start with the story from Israel, the story of the Bible. Found in Genesis chapters 1 through 4, there is a story of the creation of human beings by a God who is personal, who is holy, and who cares about his creation. Now, in the story of the Bible, human beings are made in the image of God, which is an ancient Near Eastern term that often refers to royalty. Human beings are made to be royal priests and priestesses in God's temple garden city, as we will come to find. In other words, human beings matter. We are important, and we are created to do a particular task, which is to work and to keep God's creation. And although things will go wrong, and God will promise a redemptive plan to fix the things that have gone wrong, God will still love us, and God will still be in a relationship with us. We're going to contrast this story to a story that's actually a little bit older, at least in terms of written format, and the story from ancient Babylon and ancient Mesopotamia. It's a story called Enuma Elish. And in the story of Enuma Elish, it is a violent, chaotic story about how a particular god, a god by the name of Marduk, wins his place as king of the gods over all the other gods and goddesses. In the process of this, you will see chaos, you will see betrayal, you will see warfare, and at the end of it, you will see, finally, a creation story. And at the end of that creation story, human beings are made. And sadly, our origin is not good. Human beings are made to be servants to the gods. And that tells you a little bit about how the Mesopotamians viewed the human soul and viewed the human experience. And we're going to contrast this again to a Greek story of Hesiod's Theogony, which translates to literally the origin or the beginning of the gods. And in Hesiod's Theogony, similarly, we have a story about chaos. The Greeks are often very concerned about bringing order out of chaos. And although order is kind of established here, you'll find that it's not particularly universal. It's the story ultimately of Zeus and the other people of Mount Olympus, the other gods of Mount Olympus, winning their place and vanquishing the Titans to a pit of Tartarus and destroying any rivals to their throne. And in the process of this, again, you will see the origins of humanity. Kind of. We're actually not really mentioned. Our origins aren't really mentioned. Unfortunately, the only origin story that we get is a misogynistic beginning for women. Sadly, Zeus creates human women as a punishment for human men. And although that's a horrible answer and one that we cannot defend, it is important to take a look at that and see how that's how the Greeks helped understand the world around them. That it's a fundamental truth to the Greeks as they interacted with the world around them. And that'll unfortunately help colorize things like Athenian democracy later on. Ultimately, after our study of human beginnings, we will pivot and take a look at some stories of catastrophe. Specifically, we're looking at flood myths. After studying the epic poem of Gilgamesh and seeing how one part human, part god can pursue immortality no matter the cost, we will then turn and see how he will learn the story of a flood that destroyed the entire world and destroyed almost all of humanity. And if you're familiar with the biblical narrative, you will know that this is very similar to the story of Noah and the ark. And we will take a look and compare these two and see, is one of these stories based on the other? Is the one that is older a more truer version and the younger one has copied it, or vice versa? Or has God simply used human language and experience to communicate divine truth? These are things that we'll be concerned about in this unit. At the end of this unit, we will take a look at the emergence of civilization. Specifically, somewhere around the year 10,000 BC, human beings figured out how to farm on a large scale. And this allowed human beings to harness the power of beneficial geographies, by which I mean some rivers overflow and make it a lot easier for human beings to farm so that they can water their crops. This happens first in Mesopotamia, and this unit we will study the first people to do this on a large scale, the Sumerians, and the ancient city-states of the southern part of Mesopotamia. But there are other places in the world that were also able to do this. The Egyptians on the Nile River, in China on the banks of the Yangtze River, and in South Asia on the banks of the Indus River. We will be focusing primarily on Mesopotamia and focusing on how their geography interacts with their religion, interacts with their civilization, and how human beings have begun to organize and govern the first large-scale human communities. And in so doing, we will be focusing on the core question of Humanities 9. What is the good life for human beings?